You say in your book, get rid of tenure. And this is interesting coming from a veteran teacher like yourself. How is this getting rid of tenure save America's future?
Well, I think they should get rid of tenure as soon as I retire. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Smart Kids in Bad Schools with Brian Crosby, who was an educator and author. He had some things that he felt like needed to improve in education. What led to writing a book?
The frustrations that I felt from my days as a student teacher, learning the craft, as well as whenever I would be in meetings with fellow teachers and hearing them speak about some of their frustrations, it always dawned on me that there really was hardly anything out there written by teachers about how to fix schools. And it never made sense to me because I always thought, well, who's the best people to go to ask for advice about teaching except the teachers, the experts, and how shameful it is that we have politicians, university professors, and anybody who has a talk show who can say whatever they want about education, but they've never spent one single day in a classroom with real kids. And I think we really need, when I say we, I mean this country, we really need to listen, not just listen, but ask for advice from the people who are doing the actual work.
You think part of the problem, too, Brian, is the fact that people recall their days of school?
Everybody goes through school. And so everybody thinks they can comment about it. You don't hear it, the same people saying, well, I can tell you how to be a better doctor, or I can tell you how to better build that building over there. But it just seems like because it's a common experience shared by almost everybody, that it gives everyone a right or an entitlement to say what should be done in schools. And, of course, the ironic thing with politicians is a lot of them send their own children to private school. It's just interesting. It's like there are two different educational systems in America, one that most kids go through. Now, of course, not everyone who goes to a private school is well-to-do,
no.
but some who are well-to-do, I mean, it seems like those are the politicians who say, well, let me come up with a plan. Let me dictate exactly how teachers should teach and what should be taught in the classroom. How many of them are actually experiencing it firsthand via their own children?
Well, let's talk about some of the ways that you suggested. There's 38 ways to save America's future, and it's not so much what the politicians are saying. Let's talk about some of which kind of a lot of teachers might be on board with, and some of the ideas might make teachers go, I don't know if I agree with that. Let's kind of explore both sides of it. And one of yours is starting school later. Let's talk about the scheduling of school, starting school later and making the school day and school year longer.
Well, if you just look at how many days kids are in school, a very, very basic thing, and you compare American kids to other countries, it's astonishing how little school kids have in America compared to these other countries. And I don't quite get it. I understand that if you're going to have teachers work longer, you're going to have to pay them more money. I understand that part of it. But if you could put that financial aspect of it aside, you don't hear a lot of people mentioning, boy, kids should stay in school another week or 2 weeks. And what's interesting is they were to stay in school longer each day and stay in school longer through the year, just by a couple of weeks. If you add it all up, from kindergarten through 12th grade, equates to 1.5 additional years of schooling. Now, that's nothing to say, oh, well, who cares? That's a big chunk of additional schooling, additional time for kids to learn. And it's something that is doable. It's not something that would take any tremendous, massive effort. And I don't get it. I really don't understand why. In fact, I know where I work, a lot of kids take summer school. So in effect, they're already in school 6 additional weeks. So adding a couple more weeks to the regular school year isn't going to be that shocking to them. My plan that I describe in my book, kids would still end up, out of the 52 weeks, they would still have 11 weeks off. Which American worker wouldn't love 11 weeks off? So they would still get 11 weeks off, but they would get more education. It just makes sense to me.
What's interesting is the fact that a lot of parents are against that. I know in the school system I worked with, we tried to have a shorter summers and more breaks throughout the school year. And parents were just very, very vocal to the Board of Education saying, no, we don't want that. Our kids need their summer's rest. In fact, what you're saying is that's part of the problem.
Well, yeah, and you just ask any teacher. For example, me, I'm starting tomorrow with my new students, and they're 10th graders. They're supposed to have learned something in the 9th grade, but they haven't had an English class now for 11 weeks. So all teachers right now in America, they're going through remediation, review, things that should have been learned that have already been forgotten. And I like what you guys were trying to do out there. I think it's much smarter to have more frequent breaks, but shorter breaks, like quarterly breaks. And I mean, how many parents out there take their kids on 11-week-long vacations? Maybe like 0.5%. Most do not. In fact, the majority of households in America, you have 2 working parents. And if anything, parents start really becoming quite nervous in spring because they're worried about, when the summer comes, I got to get my kid at a day camp. I got to get my kid, in some kind of structure because no one's at home to watch them. So you would think adding a little bit more school would be welcoming for most parents.
I would think so, and most kids are bored by July anyway.
Well, and that's the other thing. I mean, if you ask kids, kids really get bored quite easily. I mean,
yes.
they'll say one thing, well, I don't like school. I want to go home. I want to play with my friends. But after a couple of days, they're looking for something else to do.
Probably is it more inconvenient for parents to have more frequent breaks throughout the year because of the babysitting issues? Like during the summer, they can send them to camp, send them to live with dad or grandmother.
But whether it's the YMCA or the local parks and recreation folks, whoever has right now, let's say summer programs, would obviously create programs to match the needs of the community. I don't think this idea, and again, this goes back over a century ago when a lot of kids were children of farmers. And there were reasons why kids had to have certain time off. I mean, they were working for their families. Also, before air conditioning, there was a reason why you don't go into a hot building in the hot summer months. But we are past those issues, so they're non-issues. And I think everyone would be happier if school was treated like a job for kids and a certain pattern was set. So that, they would go to school for 10 weeks, they'd have a couple of weeks off. Go to school another 10 weeks, have another couple of weeks off. It has a nice rhythm and flow to it where kids understand that school is important. It's not something that is just a 9-month thing. I think school should start later. I think having kids, some schools, I know kids start at 6:30 or 6:45. That's atrocious. Why are they waking up when it's in about a month with the way the daylight savings time ending? It's going to be pitch black outside. It's not the most conducive conditions to expect people to use their brains at maximum power, especially little kids. And studies show when children grow into adolescence, they really require more sleep, and the rhythms of their chemical makeup are such that they tend to stay up later and get up later. And when you look at working hours of parents, I think most parents would rather their children be in school, let's say from 9 to 5, not 8 to 3 or 7:30 to 2. That creates even more havoc in terms of childcare.
What would you say to the parents that have football practice and all these recreational activities? They say, well, we can't afford to have a longer school day because my kid is so plugged into so many activities.
You can easily rearrange things so that those activities could happen in the later afternoon hours, which is better for kids anyway, to do more physical exertion, whether it's marching band practice or football practice or photography or what have you. It's better for them to be out and about, getting that type of exercise in the afternoon hours. So that could be easily incorporated. So let's say if school were to end at 5:15, they wouldn't then be at school until 7 or 7:30. In fact, I know probably going to get to it, but I think that there should be no more homework. Yes. And I really think that by having a longer work day for kids, a longer school day for kids, they can get all the work they need done at school, because most adults, we don't like to take our work home. I mean, really, no one wants to work all day and then go home and try to swallow your dinner and then go and face 1, 2, 3 hours of work for your job. I think most adults would say you're crazy, and yet we expect that from kids. And I think that's one big reason why a lot of them, after so many years of this, say, forget it. This thing is not good. I mean, who likes school? I mean, it's like it never ends.
So you're saying abolish all homework or just minimize homework?
Oh, I don't think we need to have homework. I would rather have, and I'm a parent myself, my son's teachers work with them on their work in class in a longer school day, rather than sending a packet of work that I or my wife have to help on. Now, right now, my kids are still in elementary school, but it's been a while since I myself had algebra and calculus. I'm not interested in trying to figure out calculus again, you know? I mean, who's the expert here? The expert isn't the parent. The expert is the teacher. And having kids spend more time with their teachers makes more sense. And when people hear a longer day, the work is going to be incredible. No, it won't, because the work that normally would be going home is going to be worked on during part of the class day with the teacher there assisting the students. And honestly, if you look, a lot of the homework assignments that are given out to kids, a lot of it's busy work.
Yes.
I know in math, it's just like, let's do 3 more of these things, of the same thing, the repetitiveness. And that also becomes quite boring for kids. So a lot of homework as is not that worthwhile. And a lot of teachers are overworked themselves. I know for me, I teach some honors classes where homework is definitely expected. And yet I tell myself, well, I don't want to give them busy work. At the same time, if I give them something substantive, it's going to take me, imagine going to work the next day, collecting even 1-page essays from 150 students. Wow, that's a lot. When am I going to grade those as homework? So you really have to think carefully what type of homework is really worthwhile, and also something that doesn't create a lot of anxiety for kids. I mean, kids, you look at survey after survey, they are feeling stressed out.
And education really is a triangle with the parents, the students, and the teachers working. And it seems like homework, especially way too much homework, is stress for all 3 of those areas.
Exactly.
And if teachers would just not fool with it, then they wouldn't have to worry about not doing your homework consequences, like sitting the kid out.
Yeah, think about how much, it's amazing. When I was in where I work, we have a couple of days before the students where we have these, meetings and staff development stuff. And it's amazing the amount of time spent discussing policies, attendance policies, tardy policies, homework policies. And it's mind-numbing. It's like, I feel like I'm more of an accountant of behavior rather than a teacher of the subject. I wish somebody would stand up and say, this is crazy. Why are we wasting all this time on this stuff? This has nothing to do with whether kids are learning or becoming smarter people,
The homework to serve a purpose in schools?
Don't get me wrong. If certain students are struggling, there's nothing wrong with them maybe having some additional practice at home. Obviously, there's certain projects, depending upon the subject matter, maybe a science project, which would require some research. And I have no problem with that. But my youngest son has just started kindergarten. And guess what? He has Mondays a kindergarten homework packet.
Wow.
Now, come on now. Okay, this is ridiculous. I just think this idea that, especially at the secondary level, the kids have 6 different teachers, and frequently these teachers don't talk to each other.
Exactly.
And I'll hear from my own students. They'll say, did you talk to the science teacher and the math teacher and the history teacher? You guys all conspire to make sure we have all this homework and all these tests on the same days and all this? And of course the answer is no. But I think there's a part of some teachers that feel I'm obligated to give them a half hour of work every night, or at least Monday through Thursday. But the poor kid starts getting really weighed down from class to class throughout the day, another homework assignment, and another one, and another one. It gets piled on, and it's, boy, I wouldn't want to be like them at 3 o'clock and feeling like, well, school's over, I can relax. No, you can't, because you have all this work to do.
power of field trips. And unfortunately, I know within Georgia, a lot of counties are getting rid of this, not so much as because of cost reasons, because students pay for the field trips, but because it takes away from class time and we need to be getting ready for the test. What's your view on field trips?
Oh, well, I'm sorry. More field trips. Absolutely. Keep it coming. And I'm glad you mentioned that the reasoning for minimizing it had nothing to do with the cost, because for years now, students where I work have always paid for their, you'll
Sure.
pick like a bus, X number of kids divided by, so-and-so, and it works out, $7 or $8 a kid. It's not that atrocious of a sum of money. Come on. When they all have cell phones. I mention this all the time, but often teachers are the worst enemies. And at one of these meetings last week that I was in, a veteran teacher stood up and made this pronouncement about he's sick and tired of it when, like, kids who work on the yearbook of the newspaper miss his class because they need to do an assignment. They need to work on that. And if they do that this year, he's going to make sure that those same kids miss time in the journalism and yearbook teacher's class and go back to his class. It's like, what are you, insane? I mean, isn't it great that a kid is not sitting in a chair listening to somebody or reading a book, but instead is actually walking around and interviewing people or taking photos of events? I mean, isn't that real learning? Going to an opera, going to a museum, getting the heck away from that prison-like building. As a teacher, whenever you've had to go to a meeting outside of your school, isn't it refreshing to
Absolutely.
get away for a day?
Absolutely, yeah, totally.
And kids feel the same way. You get re-energized, you go back the next day. It's such a powerful thing. And for some teachers to wag their finger and, boy, I tell you, I've had some nasty confrontations with teachers. Just last year, one teacher, a foreign language teacher, she wanted me to check the homework she assigned them because they weren't in her class that morning. She wanted me to check that afternoon when they were with me if they had done her homework. Is that lunacy or what?
Well, a lot of teachers don't even like organizing field trips because it's too unstructured. You have to watch the kids, collect the money, and all that sort of stuff too. So for them, they see it as a burden.
And that's why that's where support comes in.
Yeah.
And where I work, they have, 3 secretaries for 6 administrators. And you know how many secretaries they have for the 70 teachers?
0.
Yes, sir.
Amazing, isn't it?
So if just one of those secretaries could be designated the teacher secretary, it still wouldn't be even. Over the years, I've met nicer secretaries who are willing to do some of the paperwork for you, but absolutely. And all the liabilities, the districts put out such a obstacle course for a teacher who wants to break out of the box and enrich their kids' learning. And they should instead be doing quite the opposite. Streamlining the process, making it easy for teachers. I mean, they have to collect the money. They got to give out the receipts. They got to call the bus company. They got to get the forms. They got to get the permission. It's just, and that's why, as you said, teachers would say, well, forget it. You know what? It's just easier just staying in my room.
That's right. But something that if we're not going to get the secretary is something I've been harping about for years, and I was pleased that you put it in your book, is Fridays off for good behavior, where students have 4-day work weeks, and you have one day where teachers have a work day where they can work together, get all their meetings, get the field trips organized, just enjoy collaborating with one another, and just have a work day every week.
Exactly. And again, it would be good for everybody. It's good for the kids they'll have another adult person. I coined the term parent educator, somebody more qualified than your traditional adult instructional aide that we have these days. But that's somebody. There could be guest speakers when the teacher has the Fridays working with other teachers. There could be all kinds of things going on with those kids on those Fridays where they wouldn't have their regular teacher with them. And then it would avoid these days. I know in some districts it's 2, some it's 8. These pupil-free days that, again, create havoc with parents. Oh, my gosh, teachers have all-day meetings, but my kid is at home. I guess I got to take a day off from work.
Right.
So that would lessen that anxiety as well.
Teachers would be less burned out, maybe bring a better attitude to school because they're not bringing all these extra papers home with them. They're not having to stay longer for all these extra meetings that they can do all this on that Friday.
Absolutely.
You say in your book, get rid of tenure. And this is interesting coming from a veteran teacher like yourself. How is this getting rid of tenure save America's future?
Well, I think they should get rid of tenure as soon as I retire. No, I'm kidding. But, well, it's not a performance-driven occupation, teaching. I think everyone knows it, or at least I know teachers know it, but I'm not sure much the public knows, that it's such a socialized system of compensation whereby everybody gets paid. Really, there are two factors: the amount of college credits you earn beyond your bachelor's degree, as well as the years on the job. Nothing whatsoever to do with how well you do your job. And to me, that's un-American. I mean, isn't the American way to compensate people based on how well they do their job? And I think the people who agree with me on this issue tend to be the people who really work hard and are frustrated by not getting compensated for working so hard. The people who don't work hard, who tend to be running past the students at the end of the day to their cars so they can get home quickly. I think those are the teachers that they really don't want a system like that, because the way the system is now, it really protects the incompetent teachers. You know as well as I do that unless you do some horrendous illegal thing in your classroom with kids, teachers after the first few years, once they get solidified and they get the tenure, they'll never get fired. They have a lifetime job. And if you are a minimum working teacher who puts in the minimum amount of effort, that's fantasy land. That's tremendous. It's like, wow, for 30, 40 years, just kind of show up and pretend you know what you're doing and pretend you're doing stuff with kids, and then you can have a decent paycheck for not really working that hard. And it's atrocious. It really is. This is precious time with these kids. As it is, we only have 180 days with them. We only have 12, 13 years with them. I want to maximize that opportunity with teachers who know that they really have to work hard. At the same time, though, remove the tenure. I'm also saying compensate more. There's no reason why we shouldn't have six-figure salary teachers in this country. In fact, there's a young man from Harvard. I don't know if you know about him. I can't pronounce his name. I want to say Vanderwerk, but I'm not sure if that's right.
I'm not sure.
Anyway, he's starting a new charter school in New York City. It's going to open next year in 2009. Starting salary for teachers, $125,000 plus $25,000 bonuses if their kids perform at a certain level. Now that, if I lived in New York, I'd be out his door tonight. That man has the right idea. It's not like they're getting more funding than other schools. It's just a reshuffling of the money. And what's the most important thing at a school? And I know the politically correct answer is the students, but it's really the teacher. The teacher is the most important person at a school. And that person should be, especially a good one, should be compensated well. And so I just think trade tenure, trade this job protection for higher compensation.
Should we get rid of government funding totally and just have private enterprise for schools?
Well, I thought about it. I really don't know how I feel about it. I'm more for local control of schools. I think what the federal government can do at that level, I'd love to have a real education president, which I don't think we've had yet, but somebody who lays out the foundation, puts out the statements, says, paints the vision for American people. This is the way we want schools. And then have the states, and more importantly, the local governments, local communities, work on a plan for them. So that it's not, everyone isn't on page 25 on the third grade of their grammar book on September 2nd.
Yes.
I do not want to see, and we are headed, we're not there yet, but we are going in that direction versus the opposite direction right now. And for years we've been going in that direction of making sure everyone's doing some kind of script in their classroom.
Yep.
It's not the way to go.
There's so much more we could discuss. I mean, I wrote down tons more stuff, but we'll just let the people go check it out in your book because we only covered a fracture of some of the good stuff that you presented for us. So I want to thank you for your time. I encourage our listeners to check out the book, Smart Kids, Bad Schools by Brian Crosby, and I hope it's a great rest of the week. Keep on making the difference. We'll see you later.